And it
Yeah.
sometimes doesn't make sense to me because God doesn't tell me all the steps. I can't explain it to you. And most people need to get a better picture. And at times, like God is telling me to move. He's not telling me I need to wait for all the steps.
Yeah.
So I can't I can't try to stress myself out trying to explain it to you. I just need to do it. And then when I'm in the midst of it, then you see it.
Yeah.
And most people are seers versus doers. Whereas I ensure that this is God giving me this like assignment and like,
Yeah.
or he's blessing my idea, because that's the other piece. Sometimes they're not his assignments. Sometimes these are things that I really want to do and he has given me that he will bless it.
Yeah.
Then I can't let other people's fears get in my mind.
Episode 165. Hello and welcome to the 90 Day Wins podcast. I am so excited for another episode of the Women of Influence podcast series. And today I get to talk with someone who I've been following for some time, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. Welcome, Anna Oghogho. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for all the support. It's been amazing. So I'm here. I'm happy. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah. So before we get started, I'd like for each guest to share a little bit about themselves, and then I'll go into my deep, prying questions.
Ooh, that makes me nervous. So I'm Anna Oghogho. I always like to say I'm a 4-time founder. So, this journey all started from starting Black Pod Collective, which is a podcast community for Black audio creatives back in 2019.
Yes.
And then starting Black Pod Festival in 2020, which is a Black podcast conference. Then Adode Media in 2020, which is a full service creative marketing agency specializing in podcast production, branding and design, performance marketing. And last but not least, I founded Adode Studios, which is a full service podcast studio in the heart of Atlanta, Georgia. So I always go with like the accolades of when people are like, introduce yourself. But outside of what I do, I always like to say, I'm just a person who likes to have fun and help people bring their stories to life.
I love that. That's such a quick snippet of what you do, because I've been following you, like I said, for some time now, and it's been really cool to see all of the things you've been a part of and you've created.
Thank you.
So, my first question, can you take us back to the beginning? What inspired you to start creating content, and how did that grow into now this podcast production studio?
Whew. Honestly, I feel like people always think there's this like grand thing to it, and there really isn't. All of this started because of the fact that I was laid off from what I thought was my dream job. And in being laid off, I knew I didn't want to go back to corporate, but I had no clue what I wanted to do. I was not in the creative space. I worked in healthcare revenue cycles. So I was over like finance and budgets and all of those things, project management. So creativity, I had never even heard of Canva. Like, let's just start there. Was just not in my forefront. And I had a girlfriend who was like, you should start a podcast. And I was like, okay, and it wasn't for the premise of, because I wanted to do a podcast. I
Yeah.
started a podcast because I wanted to speak to other women who had left corporate America and
Yes.
forged their own paths. And baby, I knew I was laid off. I couldn't afford their coaching or whatever it is that people had going on. But I knew that if I invited them onto my show, I'd be able to learn from them. I'd be able to hear about their experiences. And never in a million years did I think that in starting a podcast that I would enjoy the process
Yeah.
so much. Like the process of helping people like bring their stories and tell their stories on the show, but also just the behind the scenes, all the stuff I was researching and learning. So what originally started off as, let me talk to women to see how they left corporate so I could figure out what I was going to do. I ended up finding out what I was going to do.
I love that. I love that. And see, I think because you had an intention to help yourself, you ended up helping so many other women, because I believe that's how I found you initially, because of the work you started doing with telling your stories and then putting together the collective of podcasters. I think is brilliant, honestly. So you've been evolved from a independent creator to the founder of a thriving agency, what were the key mindset shifts that helped you make this leap? Because that was a huge leap.
Honestly, I won't say there was much on the mindset side because I feel like I always had that mindset,
Okay.
but it was more so shifting the focus. So my mindset in corporate was always I mean, by 26, I was in management, managing teams of 20, 30 people who were in their 60s. And so I've always been like, go for anything you want. So I just shifted it from climbing the corporate ladder
Yeah.
and going after what I thought was the dream to, okay, wait, this is not going well. After 10 years, I just found myself kind of burnt out. And oddly enough, being laid off was the first time that I felt like I could breathe, like
Mm,
I got a severance package and I was like, oh, I don't need to find a job right away. I can actually take a second to think about what do I want for my life.
mhm.
And so shifting that focus on climbing the corporate ladder to honestly figuring it out because none of this was the plan.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
wasn't like this grand scheme plan when people are like, "Oh, you always" no, I wasn't that person. I never thought of entrepreneurship for myself.
Mhm.
So I would say it's just shifting my focus from the mindset that I had in corporate of going after everything to bringing that over into my personal endeavors.
Wow. So that to me is pretty interesting because you were able to leverage that I call it mindset of I'm going to be the best. I'm going to go after what I want. And so even though you made a change, you still were willing to bet on yourself and actually believe that you could achieve it. And so, like I told you, because I've been a part of your groups and I've seen like the information that you've provided and to this day, cuz the podcast industry is so loud to me. Like there's so much there. But when you pull back those layers and actually see the people that are doing the work and that are giving the advice, like I know I told you this years ago, but like even your newsletter, I found it so helpful. Like I actually miss it because it just had like I could scroll through. And nowadays where there's just so much everywhere, like I can scroll through other people that I'm connected with specifically to learn about podcasting and not get the information that really helps me. Like I could literally look at it and find something to say, oh, I need to look that up, whether it's telling me about a different event or telling me about something new in podcasting. So it's interesting to me to hear the backstory and how you really just kind of landed this based on just your movements and how you were thinking about things.
One, that feels so good to hear because, like, I always say, when you're doing things good, people don't always stop to praise. It's when you're not doing things well that people go out of their way to put it down.
Yes, yes.
And so it's not often that I get to hear the impact of the work that I was doing. And I will say that's the piece about community building that's very exhausting, is that you feel like you are putting in a lot of work and you're not sure if it's actually making the impact you set out to
Yeah,
make.
yeah.
And it's not like, community building, it's not for money. So it's not like you're getting the monetary value from it. So it is that like that feedback, that insight, that input. So that felt really good to hear. So thank you for that.
You're
Um,
welcome.
but honestly, it's when I look at like the trajectory of moving from space to space,
Mhm.
um, I am very much so a person who I believe my life has purpose. And I'm also a person who believes that like we only have but so much time on this earth, so I don't want to like waste any of it. Like I act like time is water, and like if I don't cut my hand properly, it's going to just sift through my hands, and I
Yeah.
never want to be left with my hand open. I want to make sure my hand is cut properly to catch all of it.
Mm.
And so that's how I look at any endeavor I go into is like, how do I make sure I'm positioned to be able to catch everything that's coming my way?
I love that. I appreciate that because I think there is, this is a 90-day wins podcast. I believe there's no time to waste. You got 90 days, let's get it done. Let's work towards it. So I like the fact that you talk about that urgency with life and having that purpose. And so what would you say to someone who just got let go? right? You know what that is to be let go, right? You know what that is to say, "Okay, what now?" How would you encourage that person who may be considering starting a podcast? What would you tell them in this moment when, they might have been thinking about starting a podcast for like 2 years, right? And so now they have an opportunity. Maybe they're getting a package, that's very common, right? And it's like, "Okay, so what do I do now?" What would you encourage that person to do?
Before you start anything, first sit in stillness. It is very easy, especially for women, to feel like we have to consistently be doing something in order
Yes.
to like show trajectory and upward mobility. So I would first recommend, whether that's a week, 2 weeks, sitting in complete stillness and one, allowing yourself to release because it is traumatic. And I don't think as a country we do a good job of like processing trauma. Like
Yeah.
we're very much so, let's just move on to the next thing. And so I would say like giving yourself a week or two to just sit, not think through what needs to be done and what's next or anything of that nature, but just actual like stillness.
Yeah.
Once you've passed through that portion, I would then say make a list. So even before, like, make a list of what could you talk about? Like those are always, I think oftentimes people want to start podcasts, but they don't actually like flesh out the topics. If you can't come up with 50 topics, you need not start a podcast.
Mm,
So if you do not have 50 ideas to flesh out on what you could talk about, then it's probably not for you because you're trying to force it because it just
yeah.
feels like what you should be doing. And then the last thing I would say is assess your bandwidth. I think people look at podcasting as this like, you know, and I always say assess your bandwidth for when you're out of where you're at. It's very easy to make decisions based off of what our time looks like in current state, but
Mhm.
not what it will look like in a year, 2 years, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And the thing about podcasting, for it to really have the impact that you're looking for, it's a long game. So, with that in mind, you have to assess your bandwidth. I always say each quarter, like with my clients, we look at it each quarter. If we're recording weekly, does the next quarter mean we should be recording monthly? Should we like, how does that look? And then I already said that was the last one, but one last tidbit is then also ask yourself, what do you want your audience to feel when they are tuning into this? Not what do they hear? That's your topics, but what do you want them to feel? What should they walk away feeling about you, your topic, and about themselves?
Yeah.
So it's what introspective moments do you want people to have when they're listening to your show?
Mhm.
Because that helps guide you as you're having conversation, whether by yourself or with someone else, of how the conversation should flow and the benefit it is for your audience.
Nice. That's some good advice there. So, let's talk about lessons you've learned along the way. So, you mentioned that it's okay to shift your focus. And can you tell me about a moment when doing so brought you new clarity and unexpected opportunities?
Um, yes. So, as I said, I originally started Black Pod Collective, and honestly, I won't even say I started it. It was
Yeah.
supposed to just be an Instagram page where
Wow.
I found like shared information I was learning
Mhm.
because I love to research, I love to read, and I would be finding so many amazing things. And I was like, you know what? I should share it with someone. And that's all Black Pod Collective was ever intended to be. And it
Wow.
just kind of spun beyond that.
Yeah.
Um, in its spinning beyond that, it became a conference. There was Black Pod Festival. And when you have a paid community with over 500 members across the globe, coupled with a conference that has seen up to 450 people,
Mm.
there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of expectation that's put on you.
Yeah.
And I had to ask myself, none of this is what I initially wanted. Like, I
Yes.
didn't want any of this. It's just I've been doing the things that the community told me that they wanted, but ultimately, if I'm being honest, people were just taking from me.
Mm.
Meaning the community kept saying they want this, they want this, they want that. And so I kept giving, giving, and giving. And when I assessed, I no longer saw what I was getting out of it.
Okay.
It was no I didn't make money from it. It was, you know, when you have so many people that you are kind of stewarded over or, responsible for,
Yeah.
everybody has such different expectations, and it's very easy for you to take that on. And so in sitting down to ask myself, what do you want? I
Yeah.
realized I enjoyed the producing part. I enjoyed the helping people bring their stories to life. And that's not what the community was doing. The community was for people to ask questions and
Yeah.
support each other and those things. Um, but I was enjoying the back end portions, the building of the actual shows. And I had to give myself permission to walk away. And I think
Mhm.
I had that moment at the last conference in 2023, and I think I
Mhm.
said it there. It was while you guys were at lunch, I think I had to leave to go take chairs to storage in my suit, makeup, all the things, and I remember somebody being so upset because they wanted to take photos with me, and I was like, "I have to go," and she was livid. She was so upset,
Mm.
and to her, she's thinking I'm being a diva, but I'm really like, I have to drive all the way to the storage unit and all the way back. And so I think that was the moment for me where I think she like posted on social media that I was
Oh,
full of
wow.
myself and all these
Oh,
things.
wow.
And I think that was the moment that I realized that this doesn't serve me in the way I need it to.
Yeah.
Um, and what I'm building over here, I enjoy. I love it. And I had to tell myself it's okay because for the longest, I felt like I was abandoning the community that first gave me access to this world that I've now built for myself.
You have big goals, and it's time to start winning. At 90 Day Wins Coaching, I help you stay focused, take action, and achieve real results in just 90 days. No more wishing. It's time for a plan that works and the accountability to get it done. Let's make this your season of success. Sign up today at 90daywins.com and let's get to work. Mm.
But I had to remind myself that I've done well. I've done more than enough for the community,
Yeah.
and God willing, somebody else is able to pick up the baton and utilize my blueprint to go from there. So
Yeah.
it was the awakening to give myself permission to make that pivot.
Mm. I'm sure that was not an easy decision to make.
That is an understatement. That is an understatement because even in an all I love that community. I poured a lot into it. Um, but you have to know when it's time.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that because a lot of times we don't listen to what we know is best for ourselves to our own detriment. And it's important to be able to do that courageous thing just like you did with starting it, making the decision to say, now is the time to move on.
Mhm.
And so let's talk about your new baby. Well, not new, but your present baby that you're nurturing, Adode Media. So tell me a little bit about it and how you've been scaling it.
It's so funny because Adode Media started back in 2020, and it really started off with honestly, it started off with us launching Black Pod Collective, the podcast, and that reaching within, I think, about 8 weeks, it hit number 33 on the podcast charts for
Wow.
education, and was featured in Apple New and Noteworthy, like it's just all the things within like 8 weeks.
Wow.
And it made me realize that, oh, wait, we may have something on our hands here. Um, and deciding to kind of bring that to like other people. So I started off testing it with Black Pod Collective members who paid an additional fee and very nominal fee, but
Yeah.
to just see like, okay, can this be replicated? Because I'm not one for like, you do something once, okay, that may be a
Mhm.
fluke.
Mhm.
But if you're able to replicate it and change it based off of the person, and the next person was featured in Ebony magazine, the next person was featured in
Wow.
Essence, and I realized, huh, I might actually be good at this. And so that's actually what I always say. That's what gave me the ball headed audacity to kind of take that leap. So that was December of 2020 that I launched Adode, and by February of 2021, I was leaving my full time job. So I had went back to corporate in 2020, actually, top of
Mhm.
2020. And by February 2021, I left corporate. Shortly after leaving corporate, I got the Revolt contract as they were launching Revolt Podcast Network, got the Black Effect contract. And in October of 2021, that same year, I opened the studio.
Nice. So I remember you telling a story about the studio and how you moved different places and how each place you literally just believed in yourself. I never forget that from the last Black Pod Collective meeting, the festival, because it was inspiring to me to hear how you just kind of like literally, okay, you were at the one location. So can you share a little bit of the story of kind of your journey to where you are right now?
Oh, most definitely. Honestly speaking, the first location, I, I I think I found it from like an Instagram post and I saw the price. It was $3,000 a month. And I was like, hmm, maybe I can do that. Like, I think we're in a space where we could do that. I spoke to my parents about it. And my big thing that it was month to month. Now, mind you, this was in 2021. So COVID was still real heavy.
Mhm.
And I originally found the place in May, June, before it was like ready because they were doing renovations and it wasn't
Mhm.
ready till October. So in May, June, I went to take a tour. And my big selling point was the fact that it was month to month. So if it wasn't going well, 30 days, baby. 30-day notice and keep it pushing. And so I remember originally not wanting to say much about the studio because I was like, okay, because if I have to close it, that's embarrassing. But then I was like, okay, you're going to end up having to close it if you don't talk about it. Like, you're going to have to put it out there. After a year paying at $3,000, I realized one very crucial thing. I had enough money to pay the rent, I had enough money to pay myself, and I had enough money to pay the team that worked in the studio. I did not contemplate money for marketing the studio.
Mm.
It was different than marketing the other services that the business did. Like, this required very tangible, and it's a brick and mortar. And so I started evaluating downsizing. I was like, okay, the lease, I mean, it's a month to month.
Yeah.
So let's look at another space. Let's look at something that brings it down to at least 2,000 a month. And this way I can invest $1,000 a month into marketing.
Mm.
Found a space in Lenox, which I was like, oh, we moving on up from the West End to Lenox. Hey, if you're not from Atlanta, you're not gonna get it.
Exactly.
But it was a come up. We're right across the street from Lenox Mall. We're in a high rise. There's security, a gate. Like, baby, I was like, I have arrived. And signed a 3-year lease actually, because I felt confident. I'm like, hey, if I could pay 3,000
Yeah.
every month for a year with no problem, then okay, I could do this. Instead of just keeping that additional thousand, I invested every month $1,000 into marketing.
Yeah.
So this way it wasn't a, oh, we're saving 1,000. No, we're just now having money for marketing.
Mhm.
Um, we moved into that space in October of 2022. And I never forgot in January, February, God told me that we were going to move, like we're moving.
Mm.
And I'm a very faith driven person, but I'm trying to say the story faster, but I will never forget. God told me this, and I said to myself, okay, well, let me see what it's going to look like to break the lease. Because, he told me that thing says you would have to still be paying rent until they found somebody else.
Ooh.
Just to give you context, I've been in this new studio for about 2 years now. They still have not found somebody else for that space. So just context. Yeah. And so I'm like, well, that has to be the devil. I'm not praying well because God would not send me to do that. Like the office across the hall from me has been empty the whole time I'm here. So I know this is not of God. Like I know that. So I'm like, I need to fast because some needs to be happening. I need to hear from him properly. My prayer time, God said, I didn't tell you I needed your help. I just told you what was gonna happen.
Wow.
God also told me to put aside $20,000. Just put aside $20,000. And I was just like, okay, I mean, I'm gonna listen. March, it finally started getting warm, and that's when it would not the air there was no air on weekends. They were turning off the
Mm.
air. And we ended up finding out that they had made a change, that they weren't gonna be supplying air, and we were just about the only company that was there after a certain time, and that was not enough. Well, I'm like, "My lease doesn't say that." These people
Yeah.
finally, after months of going back and forth, in May, they said, "Okay, we'll let you out the lease with no problems," a 3-year lease,
Ooh.
and, as long as you're out by, like, July 1st. We found this place. It had been uh, ugh, empty since 2019. Every change that I asked the landlords to make, from tearing down walls and ripping up carpets and painting rooms, he made. And rent went from 2,000 to $2,500. And we expanded from what the first studio was 1,400 square feet. The next one we downsized was 900. This one is about 2,000 square feet. So, lo- and how much it costs to expand from 900 square feet to this 2,000 square foot space, add an additional 3 studios, was $20,000.
Wow. That See why I needed to hear that again. Because when I heard it the first time, I was just like, wow, just to think about the faith walk, right?
Oh, yeah.
To trust that the same Heavenly Father that got you through all those other things, even though and I love it because it just seems so crazy to other people.
It was
Like,
crazy to me, not
I
just
would
other
have
people.
told I would have said to you, "We out to let you girl, you just got here. What you talking about?" Wow.
We outgrew the space. Spending $1,000 on marketing, that's where the company really blew up. The studio really blew up. Like, people, we figured out our footing. We figured out what our video style would be. We figured, like, there was just a lot of figuring out that was done in that 900 square foot space. But we also had funds to fund A/B testing, figure out what was working, not working, and invest into the business, invest in better cameras, invest, like, all of these things happened in that 900 square foot space, that we basically started busting at the seams with that space not being enough for us.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, I mean, I got to make this work for another 2 years. And God
Oof.
told me I didn't have to do that. And I was like, what do
Oof.
you, okay, I mean, but I signed a lease. It's not, I mean, unless you about to make me a millionaire, Lord, let me know. So
Wow. That is that is awesome, and I'm so glad you shared that because, you just have to believe. You have to believe when no one else understands, when it looks crazy, and, I mean, that's not very much time, Anna. From 2019 to 2025, I mean, that's pretty impressive.
you want to know what's funny is that people say that and I don't see it. And I think it's because I'm living it. So
Yeah.
I'm the one going through the late nights and everything else in between. So it's hard sometimes for me to see it the way other people see it.
Mhm.
Because for me, I want to be further along. And people are always like, what do you mean? But I do. And so I think I always have to remind myself, like, in due time, in due time. Um, f 5, 6 years went by in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
But I'm just grateful for the team. Oh, the team that supports me in doing all of this, and my parents, my family, as well as God's guidance. Because without it,
Yes.
baby, I would be somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. And so before I let you go, talk to me a little bit about that support system. The people that have been there with you, to just listen you think about all the things and the changes you were making. You have a close family. Family is very important to you. So talk to me about that. I met your mom. She's lovely. So talk to me about that support and how that's helped you on this journey.
It's actually twofold. And most of the things that you have heard me talk about, I never told a living soul before I did it.
Hmm.
So in launching Black Pod Collective, I don't think any friends knew or family. I think one friend knew, and she was the one who was like, "Girl, just do it." In launching the festival, I spoke to no one.
Yeah.
Adode Media, I spoke to no one. The studio, I think initially I looked into it and I finally brought my father in because he has done commercial real estate.
Yeah.
And that was probably the only reason. And also from a like, let's look at these contracts. Let's like, what questions should I be
Yeah.
requesting and all those things. But outside of that, I typically actually keep things close to the breast and not because of a, not trusting, but because sometimes I have such audacious things that I want to
Mm.
do that I have a plan, but the plan may not make sense to you. And it
Yeah.
sometimes doesn't make sense to me because God doesn't tell me all the steps. I can't explain it to you. And most people need to get a better picture.
Mm.
And at times, like God is telling me to move, he's not telling me I need to wait for all the steps. So
Yeah.
I can't try to stress myself out trying to explain it to you. I just need to do it. And then when I'm in the midst of it, then you see it.
Yeah.
And most people are seers versus doers.
Mm.
Whereas once I ensure that this is God giving me this like assignment and like,
Yeah.
or he's he's blessing my idea because that's the other piece. Sometimes
Mm.
they're not his assignments. Sometimes these are things that I really want to do and he has given me that he will bless it.
Yeah.
Then I can't let other people's fears get in my mind.
Mm.
So for the best way to not do that is to just not tell you.
Yeah.
Um, and it's so funny, like my boyfriend, I remember I'll never forget, we lived together, everything. And this man was like, you started a whole everything. And I find out on the internet. And I was like, what?
Oops.
He was like, "I see on the internet that you have a conference coming up, and my friend is like, I think your girlfriend is doing something." And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And he's like, "What?" I said, "'Cause I know you're gonna be like, where you gonna get the money from? Where's this? Where's that?" I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't have the
Yeah.
answer. And so you have to know the people closest to you. This is not to say that they're not supportive. So
Yeah.
once I have once it has been birthed, meaning I have turmoiled over it, I've thought through it, I've broken it down, I've written it down, I've prayed over it, I've everything once that part is done
Yeah.
and it is not fully fleshed out, but it's fleshed out enough. Then I bring my support into it. And
Got
they're
it.
very supportive because I have clear things to tell you. And
Yeah.
I think oftentimes we share things with people too soon. It's
Mm.
too early. They don't understand it because you don't fully understand it. And you're looking for them to validate that it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And my thing is that's for me and God to do. Like we're going to
Yes.
validate that it makes sense. And then once we've broken it down, because each time, like right now, I have not been sleeping. I've probably fallen asleep at 5 o'clock in the morning every day. This
Mm.
happens right before I'm about to birth something. And I'm like, what are we doing? And he's just like, just go with it. I'm like, well, I feel like that meme where it's like, I got all my stuff and I'm on the ride and I'm trying my hardest. But I also sometimes be like, ooh, can I get off? And he's like, no, you're on here now. And you can't keep trying to take other people on that roller coaster with you because they may
Yeah.
not have the same consonants as you do to make it through some of those things.
Yeah.
So once I flesh things out, my family, oh my God, my parents, my mom has been at every conference, everything, you name it,
I
she's
love
there.
it. I
My
love it.
dad is the ultimate, like, he has a lot to do with why he was like, this is not making dollars and cents, make it make sense to me. And my friends, oh God, my friends. So from every stage, my people are always in my corner.
Yeah.
And my dad always says it's because of the fact that you're never been a irrational person. You're not a
Hmm.
person who just takes these like you don't free fall.
Yeah.
To us, it may look like you're free falling, but what I've learned about you is you've already done the things. And so I know that in supporting you, it's not in vain. You're not going
Yeah.
to start something and then put it down. You're
Yeah.
very much so less focused. And I think that's why my friends and family rally around me because they know that by the time I'm saying it to them, this
Yeah.
is not me asking. I'm telling you what's happening. You either
It's
get on board or,
happening.
see you when I'm done.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Ugh, such an awesome interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate you.
Yes, I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed you sharing how you come about birthing that idea in your head because I do believe it's so important to kinda keep it to yourself before you share and have all those other people in your ear. And that can become so crippling sometimes if you allow other people to kind of just throw darts on what you know God has given to you. So I love that.
And especially when you yourself aren't sure yet, you know?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's different to share it to the internet or a bunch of strangers who not say you don't care about their opinion, but not the same way as like your close people, you care about
Yeah.
what they think. You know, it's
Yes.
gonna hurt a little
Yes.
bit. It's gonna
Mhm.
add a little bit of doubt,
Mhm.
even if you believe it. But now that seed is there that you could have done this without that. And now
Yeah.
you're adding another layer of hill when you didn't need to. And so for me, I just decided, I don't need that hill. I got enough hills I got to go through. Let's
That's
skip that
it.
one.
That's it. Yes, good stuff. So thank you again, and I look forward to seeing what you birth in this new season because I know it will be phenomenal.
Lord, I'm like, I done burst something every year. Can we take a break?
Be careful what you wish for because something else might be coming along and you're like, "Oh, I wanna go back there."
Touche, touche, touche.
Thank you.
But no, thank you so much for having me. This has been an absolutely great conversation. And I feel like you asked me questions that were very introspective that I have not had done in a long time. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Wow, that was a powerful conversation. I hope you're feeling inspired and ready to take action toward your 90-day wins. If today's episode gave you a new perspective or an extra push to go after your goals, I want to hear from you. Let's keep the conversation going. Share this episode on your socials and tag me at 90 Day Wins. I'd love to know your biggest takeaways. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, do me a favor. Leave a 5-star review and a comment. Your support helps more goal getters like you find this podcast and stay motivated on their journey. Remember, every day is a chance to win. Let's make it count. See you next time on the 90 Day Wins podcast.